This afternoon, Secretary of State John Kerry met with President Rodrigo Roa Duterte over lunch. And they covered a few points, and I'd like to give you a brief summary of the points that were covered. First, it was a courtesy call. It was a very interesting lunch because they shared common interests. They talked about motorcycles and hunting, and Mr. Kerry talked about how he had a motorcycle and he had a funny incident regarding that. Second, they also affirmed the long-standing relationships, the relationship between the two countries, and stated in particular that there are 4 million Filipinos in the U.S., while there are at least 500,000 Americans in the Philippines. Next, they also discussed common concerns: terrorism, crime, drugs, religious fanaticism, and maritime security. In relation to this, they also mentioned a menu of solutions. Next, the U.S. committed $32 million in training and services.
Training for what?
Law enforcement. Law enforcement. Next, they also touched on the EDCA, and it was affirmed that whatever works for the Philippines will be what will work. Next, they also touched on climate change, and Mr. Kerry was helpful in defining certain issues about the Paris Pact, and the president also responded appropriately when he said that the Philippines will work out just as long as everything is fair. Lastly, they also talked about John Kerry's involvement in the 1986 snap elections and the events that led up to it and afterwards. He mentioned how invested he was in the democratic practices in the Philippines. That about sums it up.